Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back. So, in previous lectures we discussed more about earthquakes, landslides and all that, and as I told in the beginning that some part of this lecture is also available in the other course which I gave, and as I told that this is a very important part and cannot be removed or isolated from this course, because this course is exclusively on the natural hazard part. Anyways, let's move ahead and discuss as I left with this picture in the last lecture. So this picture is from Gujarat and the city, this Surat city, which was affected by the flood, and that was in August 2006. Now the questions which lies here important. One is whether this was because of natural process. Second, when I am saying the natural process, means we are talking about the rainfall, or the second point is that whether this was the human induced flood. So these are two questions which usually we are concerned with. So it was August. Definitely we all understand that this was related to the southwest monsoon, and of course during the rainy season we expect rainfall, but in 2006 this area did not experience much of rainfall. I am talking about in particularly the Surat city. Then the question comes that then why flooding was experienced in Surat city. Now there is a very interesting story behind this. Okay. Now what happened was that there was a heavy rain in the upstream of Tapti river, and the Surat city is located on the bank of Tapti river, not very far from the coast. So you have the Arabian Sea not very far from Surat. So there was a heavy rain in the upper reaches of Tapti river. Now the fact that there was a dam almost like 50 to 60 kilometers, if I am not wrong, in the upstream of Surat, are known as Ukai Dam. Now the officers or the technical staff knew that there is a heavy rain in the upstream and water is going to come down to their reservoir. They allowed the reservoir to fill up, because this is a human tendency, and mostly in India where we are having a lot of scarcity of drinking water and all that, and even the water for irrigation, we think that okay, whatever the amount of water has been stored will be helpful for the people or the society for the next spell of or the coming spell of the year. So with this in mind, we usually try to store water, and we believe that if we are storing water, that is going to help or overcome the shortage of the water in the major cities as well as in the surrounding areas. So they they allowed the water to accumulate in the reservoir, but finally they realized that they need to release it, otherwise the dam will get damaged and there will be more devastation, which was not they were not ready to accept it, so they started releasing the water. Now in this region, the Gulf of Khambat, the tidal range is quite high, more than, if I am not wrong, around 5 meter or so. So high tidal range is very dangerous for the local flooding, or the flooding because of the so the water was released at the time of high tide. So if you are allowing the water to be released from the upstream towards the ocean during the high tide, you have a very less chance to flow out the water in ocean, and this resulted into the flooding, the local flooding in Surat. So now the question is that should we call this as a natural process, hazard related to the natural process, or it was human induced? I would say this was a human induced disaster which took place in this region. Now these are some another piece of information which talks about the overall rain distribution in India. And if you see that we have the low excess, which has been given here 0, which goes and more up to normal rainfall, which has been put as a green part, okay, and the red part or the orange part has been given as a deficit rainfall areas. Again, mostly we are concerned with the southwest monsoon rainfall over the years, and this shows the annual actual rainfall in millimeter, and what was the fluctuation which was been experienced over the time between the period of 2000 and 2017. And this figure, it shows again the rainfall from June until September, and this was for 2017, where we see that this was the normal rainfall. Some places we see deficit here, but in some locations we see the spikes coming up, which suggests that it was above normal. So during this month we experienced some excess rainfalls, and probably that were one of the reasons where we experienced the floods also in some parts of India. Another very good example which I always discuss in my lectures is from Bihar, and this is like the example. If you see the signatures of the flood events goes back into a couple of decades. Now this happened on September 2008, September 2nd, and the story is again from the Kosi River, which took different path during the due to the heavy rain. Now if you carefully look at, there is a very conspicuous feature which we can put here, something like that, okay. So if you see this, what it shows, feature like that. So this is the Himalayan front, which has not been seen here. Maybe in the next slide I'll be able to show you. So this we have helitrack here, or the folded mountain chain of Himalaya, and this is the base of that, and from that if you move towards south, so this is your north, this is your south. If you move towards south in the Indo-Gangetic plain, this is your Indo-Gangetic plain. So if you move to the Indo-Gangetic plain, then this river at present you see the channel has been shown here, but the red part which you see is the channel which was occupied in 2008. So the present stream is somewhere over here, but in 2008 it followed this path. So, if you go back into the history, it has a very typical pattern, but I would say that it does not follow that typical pattern, but yes, of course, we see some paleo channels in this area, and the feature which I was talking about, this one is termed as alluvial fan. So, Kosi fan has many dry streams. Okay. This is what we are call as an paleo channels. Okay. And over the time, it has shown the tendency to reoccupy its own channels. So, reoccupy its own streams, paleo streams. Now, if again it is a human tendency that if there is nothing is happening over 5-6 years in any particular area, we will try to occupy that, and that has happened, and this should have been taken care by the local administration with an understanding of that what hazard is associated with this type of events. That in the past we have experienced that Koshi has reoccupied its own paleo channels, so we should not allow the people to occupy that area, otherwise they will face problem, and this happened in 2008. So, we will talk maybe later about in greater detail, but these are further the floods in Odisha and all that. Now, as we keep developing, the science also develops, and this is an example from digital gauging stations or satellite gauging stations, which gives us the complete information about the floods. Okay. So, if you see, this information comes from Dartmouth Flood Observatory from USA, and here what you see is the flooded land which have been marked by different colors, which you can see here. Okay. So, backdrop, what you see the map is the elevation data, and here you see the blue 2003. So, you can make out that in 2003 what was the scenario, how much area was affected by flood. Then comes to 2002 and so on. So, in some years there is no data, that means that area did not experience flood, but most of the time if you see that these areas are flooded. Now, this stream is not so wide, but the area which has been shown here, that the width here is it clearly suggests that the surrounding areas close to the channel were affected by flood. So, this area we know that this region is most of the time is getting affected, from which you can make out that it was flooded in 2003 and up to 2002, and then further also in 1998, and as I told that it was also affected in 2008. So, this was the condition in 2008. Now, you just recall what I was talking about, that this is the Himalayan front here. So, as soon as this Kosi river flows down into the Indo-Gangetic plain, it forms a alluvial, it results into the formation of alluvial fan, as well as the present stream is here, okay, which goes and meet Ganga, but 2008 this was the portion which is occupied. Now, we keep on claiming that and blaming that the Nepal area or the Nepalese are responsible, or this area, whosoever is staying there, either they are involved in deforestation, and because of the deforestation a lot of erosion is taking place. But the other reason which I feel is that not only the deforestation is allowing the more amount of sediment erosion, but at the same time the ongoing deformation between these two plates, that is, this side is the Indian plate and this side is the Eurasian plate, and ongoing deformation of Himalaya can also trigger more of erosion. So, more of erosion, more amount of sediment load has been supplied in the channel, and that will result into the reduction of your channel width and channel depth. So, if you reduce the cross sectional area and not allow the water to flow easily, it will spill over the banks and result into the floods. Okay. So, again the red marks which have been shown the current flood, that was in 2009, this data is from 2009, and then we have darker green colors which have been shown here in 2009, 2008 which I was talking in the previous is this area. Okay. So, when we understand that this portion of our Indo-Gangetic plain is going to be affected in future also, because we see the history and the floods are such an climatic hazard which will reoccur again and again during a particular season or a particular period of the year. So, we have lot of data which will be available, and we know with the experience that what has happened in the past. So, based on that, one can easily make out the flood hazard map, and then you can save more and more life loss as well as the property loss. Again, flood in 2013 in Uttarkashi. Now, if you see this picture, probably we can spend some time on this and then understand that because of the inappropriate practice of land use, we ourselves are putting like us to risk, more and more risk. And as I told, that river will not stop saying that okay fine, you people are staying here and leaving and occupying my area, so I'll flow somewhere else and not come across crossing your region, but it can flow anywhere, and it has a tendency to reoccupying its own floodplains in own paleo channels and all that. Now, there was a lot of issues which were been experienced at the time of 2013 Uttarakhand flood, and the erosion of the banks were one of the major cause of collapsing of the houses which were sitting close to the river banks. No doubt this houses you see here, the lower portion has been slided down. So, this is one of the process which we can put it in landslip or the landslide, but this was caused because of the erosion of the banks at the base. So, you erode the bank at the base, and this portion hanging in the air will collapse. And some places what you see are the terraces. Okay. So, terraces we will learn when we are talking about the floods and all that, but this is one of the important landform which will be always associated with the river system. Okay. So, these are the terraces, and these are all, I will just sketch it here. So, if you put the boundary here, this is the boundary one, there is another boundary over here which goes, and then you have a third boundary which is coming here, and these are all the river cliffs or the banks. Okay. And these are one, and this is another one. So, if you ask to how to classify it, it is just the elevation. Okay, the higher terrace may come somewhere over here. So, this will be your youngest T0 terrace, this is an T1, and this is your T3. T3 is the highest and the older one, okay, and this is younger one. So, in any case we are occupying these terraces, and in this case in particular the water did not reach right up to this, but because of the erosion which took place underneath close to the bank, because the water was very turbulent. So, this got eroded, and because of the erosion they experienced the collapse. Okay. There is another picture from that area again. You can easily make out what I was talking about. This is in hanging, this is in the hanging part, and of course this whole housings are sitting in your its old floodplain which was been occupied and now getting affected because of the heavy flood in this region, and this house is hanging in air. The lower part portion of this has been eroded water action. Now, this is the statue of Shiv, which is 10 feet above the riverbed. This is from Rishikesh, and 10 feet above the riverbed, and the statue is around 15 feet. Okay. So 10 from the bed and 15, almost 25 feet above the riverbed. So what happened at the time of the flood, the peak flood, the water reached right up to its neck. Okay, so his neck was then, and finally, what I learned was that the statue was been driven away in waters. Okay. But the previous slide, if you see, remember this house, I'll just put it back. So over here, okay, this is the house which has been shown in the next one, and the temple is over here, this one. So you can make out that whole this area has been occupied by water, and it is going right up to this green part over somewhere over here. So the water flow depth were very high, and which was experienced in the Uttarakhand flood. This is again a very important one. So for me, if you see, most of all the hazards are very important for us to understand. When we talk about tsunami, immediately you will find in most of the sites or the websites as well as the textbooks this beautiful picture. Now this picture was printed at the Metropolitan Museum of Arts. It was by Katsushika. This is the Hokusai, the person who was the artist who painted this picture, and he wanted to show that tsunami could be so high and devastating if you compare this to the Mount Fuji. Okay. But this what we kept on understanding, that this was the story behind this picture, although this was not. Okay, although it is often used in tsunami literature, this picture you will find everywhere. So the story which I was the part which I was talking about, that the Hokusai art, he was an artist. He painted this to show, this was our understanding when we kept on studying, and we still study the tsunami. Wanted to show that how high tsunami could be as compared to the Mount Fuji. So in literature this was been used most of the time, but there is no reason to suspect that Hokusai intended to be interpreted in that way. It was not for the tsunami. The wave in this picture work are sometimes mistakenly referred to as tsunami. So this was not exactly, but they are more accurately called Okinami, a great offshore waves. So he just wanted to project the great offshore waves, and he wanted to compare it with the Mount Fuji, but not exactly the tsunami. But in most of the literature you will find this when we are talking about the tsunami. So tsunami waves, or the tsunami word itself, it came from the Japanese literature, and talking about the harbor waves. Okay. And you can just make out this the cloud. Okay, so these are what the tsunamis can eat away the whole region. Okay, it was been shown like that. Now tsunami is very well known in other countries, like mostly in Japan, and the word it was been coined in Japan as a great offshore wave or harbor wave. But this was shocking for us in 2004 event of Sumatra Andaman tsunami. This picture is from Mariana Beach at Chennai, which shows the devastation and then local flooding which was caused by 2004 for tsunami. I'm not going to get into the detail right now, but I have couple of pictures which we collected and took from Andaman after immediately after the event in 2005 January. So anyways, this was quite shocking. A lot of people got killed, not only in Andaman but in the along the east and west coastline of Indian mainland, and also it affected the neighboring countries like Thailand and other regions adjoining Indian Ocean. It was one of the devastating event. The magnitude of the earthquake which triggered this tsunami was 9.2 and 9.3. Now this picture we took at Car Nicobar, and the what you see here is only the water tank which is standing, and rest of the whole occupation, which was the housing society or the houses, the colony of occupied by the Indian Army and Air Force at Malacca Bay, was completely wiped off. The reason for this was that because it has a circular structure, the energy got dissipated and nothing happened to this this structure, even though it was quite tall. But other areas, the houses which were been constructed were completely destroyed. I'll talk in detail when I'm talking about in particular about this event, the lectures which I'll be giving later on. But here there are a couple of pictures which you see that it had a twofold effect. One was because of strong ground shaking, and the area in this area, this region got subsided. Because during the major earthquake, subduction zone earthquake, some areas will get uplifted and some areas will get subsided, and this area of Car Nicobar was subsided almost by 1.5 to 2 meters. This was from Port Blair, the area known as Sippikat, which also subsided by 1 meter. And the picture which quite amazing, because you see most of the features here, these are all paddy farms. Okay. So the paddy people told us, the survivors told us here, that this area was extremely expensive because of its like very fertile land, very good for paddy cultivation. So more and more people wanted to buy this land, and this hence it became very expensive. But in 2004 this area got subsided, and now even during the low tide this area remains submerged under the tidal waters, and high tide, of course, more area get affected. So even you can easily make out some locations over here, there are plantation which are sitting right into the waters, and even few houses which you see, they are sitting in waters. So this was one of the effect which was been experienced during and after 2004 tsunami. This was at Great Nicobar, the southernmost tip of India, in Andaman Islands, where most of the houses now sits in water. They say this point subsided almost by 3 meters. Another example from Tohoku earthquake in 2011. It was again a devastating event, 9.1 magnitude. This was the situation in some locations in Japan. A lot of houses were been completely wiped off, and the energy conditions of the waves were too high that it moved the vessels right on the top of the houses. This picture you can see, which has been which is close to the coast, but yes, it was quite devastating compared to your 2004 also, okay, in some locations. Now the picture which has been shown here, this is the above and below. This is before, okay. and this is at the time of tsunami wave arrived. So what you see, the common portion, the you can make out is this one here. Okay. Now they usually, in most of the places in Japan, you will find that they have constructed the walls, and these are the walls which are constructed to protect the tidal water coming into the city. And with some understanding, they constructed the wall a couple of meter high, knowing that no tsunami will bring the water more than above this level. But that was not true. In 2011 was much damaging, which flowed over the walls and destroyed the area. This was quite shocking for them also, but with a proper understanding that what should be done at the time of tsunami, not many people got killed during, even though the event was quite devastating. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much.